In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use GeoGebra to create some of the surface plots that you saw in your textbook. Now, your textbook does go through a couple different types of plots to visualize functions with two independent variables, including heat maps and contour plots. GeoGebra isn't going to make those, but it will make the nice surface plots. And I think, again, creating some of these plots, it's just going to help you build that intuition on how to visualize these different functions. So here, just to start out with GeoGebra, I haven't put anything in yet. And really what we've got here is the XYZ plane. And so you'll notice here that you've got on the red line and the green line, that's what you can think of as previously when we plot things using X and Y. So that flat surface, that two-dimensional surface that the green and the red lines create, that's what we looked at previously whenever we would plot. Now what we're doing is we're adding in an additional layer, and that is the blue line. So that's what we can think of as being Z, and that's what's going to make these plots three-dimensional. So let's go ahead and create one of the plots from your book so you can see what this looks like. So one of the plots that your book looks at is a graph of x minus y squared. So I can put in x minus y squared, very similar to what you looked at in your textbook was the x minus y squared, but also this is going to be very similar to in Desmos when we would make the two-dimensional plots, how we type these in. Alright, so here is the plot, and one of the really nice things about using GeoGebra is that we can actually move the plot around, and you can kind of play with it to get a feel for what it looks like. And so in your textbook, you're really only getting one look at what this graph looks like, whereas in GeoGebra, we can kind of move it around and get a really good feel for what this plot looks like. And so looking at your book kind of makes it look like this folded piece of paper that is rounded, but you don't get nearly as good of a feel of what is happening here as you do by being able to move it around and look at that graph. And so you can see what we actually have here is a three-dimensional shape, and we can see that it's a plane that is kind of folded and again exists in that three-dimensional space. Alright, so let's look at another example from your book. So another one that your book looks at, let me just delete this out, is the sine of x plus the cosine of y. And so here is what this one looks like. We can click on that to remove the 1. And so again, your book just looks at a very small piece of this plot, whereas here in GeoGebra we can see that this pattern, it would keep on extending out and out. And here you can move it around and just kind of get a feel for what this looks like. And it's not surprising when we look at this one that we see that that pattern is repeated. That's what we would expect from cosine and sine. We can move this around and we can see exactly what that looks like. All right, and then let's look at one more. So one other one that your book looks at is 2x squared minus y squared. Oops. And here is what that plot looks like. And so again, at first when you put this in, it doesn't necessarily look like what your book has, but if we move it around and we position it kind of like this, we can start to get a feel for what you see in your textbook. And again, by being able to move this around, you get a much better feel for what this shape actually looks like instead of just having that one still image on the page. So again, I highly recommend put in some of these different functions from your textbook. Move the cursor around and just get a feel for what these different shapes look like. And what you can also do is you can also go up here and manipulate the function, change some things around, and see what that changes in the plot itself. So maybe instead of x squared, we're going to have x cubed. What is that going to do to our plot? How does that change things? And so we can see that drastically changes the shape from what we had before when we had the x squared. So as always, if you have any questions on this, please let me know.